A pain researcher named Pavel Goldstein was watching his partner go through labor. He held her hand, and then he did something unusual for a scientist. He measured what happened in both their brains at the same time. The brainwaves synchronized, alpha waves, the same frequencies firing in time with each other across two separate nervous systems. And here's the part that stopped him cold. The more their brains synced, the more her pain went down. He hadn't given her medication. He hadn't performed any technique. He held her hand. That study was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in 2018, and it changed the way a lot of us think about what touch actually does, not just to the body receiving it, but to two nervous systems in contact with each other. Welcome to the Wellness Bridge. I'm Gary Chen, physiotherapist and founder of Juicy Integrative Physiotherapy and Wellness on the Gold Coast. Today, I want to break down something I see almost every week in the clinic. Patients who have tried everything for the chronic pain. They've had scans, they've had injections, they've taken medications, and then someone puts their hands on them in the right way with the right presence, and something shifts. Not always immediately, but it shifts. Why does that happen? What is touch actually doing at the level of the brain and nervous system? And is there a science precise enough to explain what Eastern healing traditions have known for thousands of years about therapeutic contact? I've got someone brilliant with me today to help unpack exactly that. Dr. Claire is a Gold Coast-based physiotherapist who has spent the last 12 years specializing in pain neuroscience and nervous system regulation. She works with complex chronic pain cases, and she's thought more deeply about touch than almost anyone I know. Dr. Claire, welcome.
Thank you, Gary. This is such an important topic. I think touch is probably the most underestimated clinical tool we have.
Can you set the scene for us? When we are talking about therapeutic touch, what exactly are we referring to?
Great question to start with. There are actually two distinct touch systems in the human body, and most people, including many clinicians, don't realize they're activating them separately. The first is the discriminative touch system, fast conducting fibers, A beta, that tell you precisely where something is touching you, how much pressure, what shape. This is your spatial GPS for the body. The second is what we call the effective touch system, unmyelinated C-tactile afferents, CT fibers. These are slow and they don't report location. They report social meaning. They activate when you're touched by another human at a specific speed, between 1 and 10 centimeters per second, which is roughly the speed of a slow, deliberate hand placed on someone's back.
So there's actually a nerve fiber system dedicated to feeling the emotional quality of touch.
Exactly. And what makes it clinically extraordinary is that these CT fibers project directly into the brain's emotional processing centers, the insula, the anterior cingulate cortex, rather than purely the somatosensory cortex. They're telling the brain you are safe, you are cared for, pain threat can reduce.
Let me bring in the case study I want us to unpack today, because I think it makes this tangible. I had a patient, I'll call her Maria, 53, 8 years of chronic low back pain. She'd been through 3 orthopedic specialists, 2 rounds of injections, a physio who largely gave her exercises and sent her home. She came to me catastrophizing deeply. Every movement felt dangerous. The turning point for Maria wasn't a new exercise program. It was the first time I did hands-on palpation of her spine while explaining to her exactly what I was feeling, and more importantly, what I wasn't feeling. There was no structural threat. And the combination of that touch and that education together, something changed in her face, in her body.
What you're describing has a precise neurobiological explanation. There's a framework called active inference, developed in neuroscience, that describes how the brain manages pain predictions. The brain isn't a passive receiver of pain signals. It's constantly making predictions, priors, about what sensations mean. In chronic pain, the brain has built a very precise, overconfident prior. This body is damaged. Movement is dangerous. Every new sensation gets interpreted through that lens. Therapeutic touch, especially combined with education, introduces what neuroscientists call prediction error. It disrupts the prior. The brain receives information that doesn't fit its threat model. And when the source of that information is a trusted human hand with demonstrably calm nervous system, that disruption carries enormous weight.
What's happening chemically when that disruption happens?
Three things simultaneously. Oxytocin is released, and a 2026 preprint, not yet peer-reviewed, from Biorexive suggests that oxytocin from therapeutic touch may act directly on the spinal dorsal horn, the first relay point for pain signals in the central nervous system. It's not just a feel-good molecule. Early evidence indicates it may be modulating pain at the spinal gate. Second, inflammatory markers drop. Teodorczyk and colleagues, writing in the Journal of Manipulative and Physiological Therapeutics in 2006, showed approximately a 20% reduction in inflammatory cytokines TNF-alpha and IL-1 beta within 2 hours of spinal manual therapy. And third, and this is what I find most extraordinary, two nervous systems begin to synchronize: heart rate, respiratory rhythm, and as Goldstein's 2018 PNAS study showed, even brainwave frequencies in the alpha band. This is not metaphor. This is electroencephalography.
So when a skilled clinician makes contact with a patient, both their brains are literally reorganizing around each other?
Biobehaviorally, yes. And a 2024 EEG hyperscanning study, Montalon and colleagues, confirmed this is strongest in the alpha frequency band, centered in the parietal lobe, precisely the region that integrates sensory information with empathic processing.
The more empathy the clinician brings, the more synchrony. And the more synchrony, the more pain reduction.
Kasimis and colleagues published an RCT in 2024, 60 participants with chronic low back pain that quantified exactly what adding education to manual therapy achieves. Manual therapy alone produced a 45% reduction in pain intensity. Manual therapy plus pain neuroscience education plus motivational interviewing produced a 61% reduction. And critically, the combined group maintained those gains at the 6-month follow-up. The standalone group didn't.
I want to bring something in here that I think about often. In Chinese medicine, and in the broader traditions that inform my practice, there is a concept of healing touch that isn't about technique at all. It's about qi, the practitioner's own energy, their internal state, the quality of attention they bring through their hands. And Western medicine has historically dismissed this. It sounded mystical, unscientific. But what the neuroscience of active inference and biobehavioral synchrony is describing in very precise language is exactly the same thing. The practitioner's nervous system state is transmitted to the patient's nervous system through physical contact. The quality of the practitioner's presence, the calm, the empathy, the intention is not a nice to have. It is the mechanism.
I've come to the same place from a completely different direction, and I think it's one of the most important things a clinician can understand. You cannot separate the touch from the person doing the touching. Oxytocin, which researchers are now calling the biological mediator of social safety, is released in both the giver and the receiver of therapeutic touch. The healing is not unidirectional. The practitioner's own nervous system regulation is part of the therapeutic tool.
which is why Qigong practitioners spend years learning to regulate their own system before they ever work on someone else.
Exactly. And it's why rushed, disengaged hands-on care, even technically correct care, is neurobiologically inferior to care delivered with full regulated presence.
Let's make this really practical. Dr. Claire, if you were speaking to someone listening right now who is living with chronic pain, 3 things they can do immediately, what are they?
First, seek out slow, deliberate, attentive touch, not just clinical touch, social touch. Holding a hand, a gentle hand on a shoulder, your CT fibers don't care whether you're in a clinic or at home. Approximately 3 centimeters per second, the speed of a slow, intentional hand stroke on your forearm activates the entire effective touch pathway. Second, if you're working with a physiotherapist or manual therapist, ask them to combine hands-on treatment with explanation, not just here's your exercise. Ask, what are you feeling? What does this tell you? That combination, Kasimis's data is very clear, is dramatically more effective, and the gains last longer. And third, understand that chronic pain is often a nervous system prediction problem, not just a tissue problem. If your brain has been predicting danger for years, one treatment session can disrupt that pattern. But consistent, safe, connected therapeutic contact is what rebuilds the new prediction. It takes repetition. It takes a trusted relationship. Don't expect one session to do what took years to build.
And from my side, to every clinician listening, what this research is telling us is that the quality of your presence in the room is a clinical variable. It belongs in your toolkit alongside every other technique you've trained for. Maria, the patient I mentioned at the start, finished her 6-month program last year. She's back to hiking. She does a 15-minute morning routine that includes breathwork and gentle self-massage of her lumbar spine, which sounds simple, but she knows exactly why she's doing it now. She understands her nervous system, and that understanding is doing as much work as the physical practice. Touch has always been medicine. We just finally have the language to explain why.
And the beautiful thing is that language doesn't diminish the magic of it. If anything, knowing that 2 human nervous systems can literally synchronize through contact, that feels like magic that earned its proof.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Claire. This conversation has given me so much to take back into the clinic.
Thank you, Gary. It's been a joy.
If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who is navigating chronic pain, or with a clinician who you think needs to hear it. Leave a review if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It truly helps more people find the show. And remember, together, we find balance in one. I'll see you on the next episode of The Wellness Bridge. Script and quality checks.